Have you ever noticed how some of the most anxious, perfectionistic adults you know were once labeled gifted and talented as children? There's something strange about that, isn't it? We assume that being told you are exceptional would create confidence, resilience, a sense of limitless possibility. But walk into any therapist's office, scroll through any mental health forum, and you'll find a peculiar pattern. Adults who were once the smart kids, struggling with impostor syndrome, paralyzed by the fear of failure, unable to start projects they can't immediately perfect. The child who could read at 3. The one who skipped a grade. The one pulled out of regular classes for enrichment. They were supposed to have an advantage. So why do so many of them feel like they are constantly on the verge of being exposed as frauds? What happens to the psychology of a child who was told they were gifted? Let me take you back. You are 7 years old, and a teacher pulls your parents aside. There are forms. There are tests. And then one day, you are separated from your friends and taken to a different classroom. You are told you are special, gifted, talented. The words feel good at first. They feel like winning. But here's what's really happening in that moment. Your identity is being fused with your intellectual performance. And that fusion, that merging of who you are with what you can do, it creates a psychological architecture that will shape everything that comes after. See, when a child is labeled gifted, they are not just receiving information about their abilities. They are receiving information about their value. And the young brain, still developing its sense of self, begins to construct a dangerous equation. I am what I achieve. My worth is my output. Love, attention, and belonging are conditional on continued performance. This is where developmental psychology reveals something crucial. Children are meaning-making machines. They are constantly asking themselves, why do people treat me this way? What does this tell me about who I am? And when a child is consistently praised for being smart, for getting things right, for excelling with ease, they internalize a narrative. I am loved because I am exceptional. I am valued because I don't struggle. But here's the thing, giftedness, as it's typically identified in childhood, often has less to do with actual ability and more to do with early development and pattern recognition. Some children's brains simply mature faster in certain areas. They connect dots earlier. They read before their peers. They memorize multiplication tables while others are still counting on their fingers. And in those early years, this feels like magic. Everything comes easily. You don't study for tests, you just know the answers. You don't revise your writing, it flows perfectly the first time. You finish assignments in half the time it takes others. And every time this happens, you receive validation. Gold stars, teacher praise, parents beaming with pride. Your success becomes the family story, the dinner table conversation, the grandparents' brag. The psychology behind this runs deeper than simple positive reinforcement. What's actually being created is what Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset, the belief that your abilities are innate, unchangeable traits rather than skills that can be developed. You are not learning that you are good at learning. You are learning that you are naturally, inherently smart. And that distinction? It changes everything. Because here's what's fascinating. When success comes without effort, your brain never learns the relationship between struggle and growth. You never develop what psychologists call frustration tolerance, the ability to sit with discomfort, to push through difficulty, to fail and return. Instead, you develop something else entirely, an avoidance of anything that might reveal you are not as gifted as everyone thinks. Let me show you how this plays out. You are in 5th grade, and for the first time, something is hard. Maybe it's long division. Maybe it's a writing assignment that requires multiple drafts. Maybe it's a science project that doesn't come together immediately. And you feel something you've never felt before: confusion, uncertainty, the possibility that you might not get it right. But you've never built the psychological tools to handle this feeling. So what do? You avoid it. You procrastinate. You develop a stomachache on test day. You choose the easier project, the safer topic, the path where success is guaranteed. Because the alternative, trying hard and still failing, would shatter the foundation of your identity. If you are supposed to be gifted, struggle means something is wrong. It means maybe you are not so special after all. It means the label was a mistake. And this is where it gets complex, because the adults in your life don't see what's happening inside you. They see a bright child who's not living up to their potential. They see someone who's lazy or not trying hard enough. They apply pressure. They express disappointment. They remind you how much you are capable of, if only you'd apply yourself. But here's what they don't understand. You are not avoiding effort because you are lazy. You are avoiding it because your entire sense of self is at stake. For you, trying hard and failing is psychologically more dangerous than not trying at all. At least if you don't try, you can preserve the possibility that you could have succeeded. At least you can maintain the fiction that your giftedness is still intact, just dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge effortlessly. This is what psychologists call self-handicapping, and it's one of the most painful patterns that emerges from childhood giftedness. But the truth is, the psychology of the gifted child isn't just about achievement and failure. It's about belonging, about identity, about the fundamental human need to know, am I okay as I am? And for many gifted children, the answer they receive is, you are okay because you are exceptional. You are lovable because you are different. You are valuable because you are ahead. This creates a profound isolation. You are separated from your peers, literally and figuratively. You are in different classes. You are given different expectations. You are held to different standards. And while the adults frame this as an advantage, your nervous system experiences it as exile. Because children don't just want to be special, they want to belong. They want to be normal. They want to be accepted not for what makes them different, but for what makes them the same. Research on attachment and belonging shows us that children need to feel both valued and connected. But the gifted label often creates a situation where you can have one or the other, but not both. You are valued for your exceptionalism, but that very exceptionalism separates you from genuine connection. So you learn to perform. You learn to be interesting. You learn to be the one with the answers, the explanations, the intellectual contributions. You learn that your role in relationships is to add value through your mind. And slowly, without even realizing it, you lose access to other ways of being loved. The quiet ways, the vulnerable ways, the ways that don't require constant demonstration of worth. And maybe that's the real tragedy of the gifted child psychology, not what it does to achievement, but what it does to authenticity. You become afraid to not know things, to ask basic questions, to admit confusion, to be a beginner at anything. Because your identity is wrapped up in being the person who understands, who excels, who doesn't need help. So you go through life performing certainty even when you feel lost. You take on projects you are not ready for because backing down would mean admitting limitation. You stay in conversations where you are silently drowning because asking for clarification would shatter your image. You turn down opportunities that genuinely excite you because they'd require you to be visibly, undeniably, uncomfortably bad at something before you could be good. Here's what's really happening. You've learned that your value is contingent on a narrow slice of who you are. And everything outside that slice, your emotions, your needs, your uncertainty, your very human struggles, feels like a threat to the only version of yourself that you've been taught is acceptable. This is where the anxiety lies. This is where the perfectionism breeds. This is where the imposter syndrome takes root and grows wild. But let me tell you something about imposter syndrome in gifted adults. It's not actually about being a fraud. It's about having a child's definition of competence trapped inside an adult's reality. When you were 8 and called gifted, competence meant knowing things immediately. It meant getting perfect scores without studying. It meant never struggling, never asking for help, never needing more than one try. That was the standard that defined you. But adult competence looks nothing like that. Adult competence is messy. It's iterative. It's built through failure and revision and asking stupid questions and starting over. Adult competence requires exactly the kind of visible struggle that child you was taught to avoid at all costs. So now, every time you have to learn something new, every time you make a mistake, every time you need help, your nervous system interprets it as evidence that you are not actually gifted. That you never were. That everyone is about to discover the truth. But the truth is this, you were never an imposter. You were a child given an impossible standard and a fragile identity, and you've been trying to maintain both ever since. And this is where it gets interesting, because the research on expertise and skill development tells us something the gifted label obscures. Mastery is not about natural talent. It's about deliberate practice. It's about thousands of hours of focused effort, most of which involves being bad at something before you are good at it. Anders Ericsson's research on expert performance found that what separates masters from amateurs isn't innate ability, it's sustained engagement with difficulty. It's the willingness to work at the edge of your competence, where things feel awkward and uncertain and hard. But if you've built your identity on things coming easily, that edge is terrifying. That's the place where your giftedness is supposed to save you, and when it doesn't, when you are just as confused as anyone else would be, it feels like betrayal. So you retreat. You stay in the comfortable zone where you already excel. You become the person who knows a lot about a few things and refuses to be a beginner at anything else. Your world narrows. Your curiosity, which was once your gift, becomes subordinated to your need for certainty. Let me take you somewhere else for a moment. Let's talk about the emotional life of the gifted child, because that's where some of the deepest wounds live. Here's what happens when a child is consistently valued for their intellect. They learn that emotions are obstacles to performance. They learn that feelings are messy, inconvenient things that get in the way of being impressive. They learn to intellectualize everything, to analyze rather than feel, to explain rather than express, to understand rather than experience. This is what psychologists call emotional bypass, using your intellect to avoid your feelings. And for gifted children, it often becomes the primary coping mechanism. You are sad? You analyze why sadness exists from an evolutionary perspective. You are angry? You deconstruct the cognitive distortions underlying your anger. You are lonely? You read about attachment theory instead of reaching out for connection. Your intellect becomes a shield against vulnerability. And while this might help you maintain the appearance of having everything together, it disconnects you from the very feelings that make you human, that signal your needs, that guide you toward what you actually want. Because here's the thing about emotions. They are not problems to be solved. They are information to be felt. But when your identity is built on being the problem solver, the smart one, the one who figures everything out, you can't afford to simply feel. You have to understand, categorize, transcend. And over time, this creates a kind of emotional homelessness. You become estranged from your own inner life. You know about emotions, but you don't know how to be with them. You can explain psychological concepts, but you can't ask for what you need. But here's what's really heartbreaking. The gifted child is often deeply sensitive. They pick up on subtleties others miss. They notice emotional undercurrents, unspoken tensions, the things that hover beneath conversation. Their cognitive gifts are often matched by emotional intensity, what psychologists call overexcitability. But nobody teaches them what to do with this. Nobody says, your sensitivity is as valuable as your intelligence. Instead, they are often told, directly or indirectly, that their emotions are too much, too intense, too dramatic, that they are overthinking, that they need to calm down, toughen up, not be so sensitive. So they learn to hide it. They learn to channel everything through their intellect. They become the funny one, the insightful one, the one who can articulate everyone else's feelings while remaining mysteriously distant from their own. And the loneliest part? Even when people appreciate what you offer intellectually, you are never quite sure if they'd stay if all you had to offer was your simple, unimpressive, ordinary. Let's talk about perfectionism for a moment, because this is where the psychology of giftedness crystallizes into a specific kind of suffering. Perfectionism isn't really about wanting things to be perfect. It's about needing to be perfect to feel safe. It's about the belief that if you can just control every variable, anticipate every outcome, eliminate every flaw, you can protect yourself from judgment, rejection, and the exposure of your inadequacy. For the gifted child turned adult, perfectionism is a survival strategy. Because you've learned that mistakes aren't just mistakes, they are evidence of fraudulence. Average isn't just average, it's failure. Good enough isn't good enough, because you are supposed to be exceptional, remember? So you set impossible standards. You procrastinate on projects until you can do them perfectly. You revise emails 17 times before sending them. You turn down opportunities because you can't guarantee a flawless performance. You stay up until 3 in the morning fixing details no one else will notice because the alternative, submitting something imperfect, feels like handing over proof that you are not who everyone thinks you are. And the cruelest part? The more you achieve, the higher the bar becomes. Every success raises the standard for the next attempt. You can never rest. You can never do enough. Because exceptional isn't a destination, it's a treadmill that only speeds up. This is what researchers call the perfectionism procrastination loop, and it's one of the most common patterns in adults who were identified as gifted in childhood. But let me tell you what's underneath all of this. Underneath the anxiety, the perfectionism, the impostor syndrome, The emotional isolation. There's grief. There's grief for the childhood you didn't get to have. The one where you could be messy and still be loved. The one where you could fail and still be valued. The one where your worth wasn't contingent on your performance. There's grief for the relationships you couldn't fully enter because you were too busy maintaining an image. For the risks you didn't take because they might reveal your ordinariness. For the parts of yourself you had to hide to keep being special. And there's grief for the child who was told they were gifted and thought that meant they were enough, only to spend the rest of their life discovering that the label was actually a condition. You are valuable, as long as you keep being exceptional. So what do you do with all of this? How do you untangle a psychology that was woven in childhood and has been reinforcing itself for decades? Here's the truth. You don't fix it by trying harder to be gifted. You don't overcome imposter syndrome by finally achieving enough to prove you are exceptional. You don't heal perfectionism by becoming more perfect. You heal by questioning the premise entirely. You heal by asking, what if I don't need to be gifted to be worthy? What if being ordinary, average, struggling, what if that's not a failure of my potential but proof of my humanity? You heal by deliberately choosing to be bad at things. By taking classes where you are the slowest learner. By asking questions everyone else already knows the answer to. By showing people the parts of you that aren't impressive and watching, with surprise, as they don't leave. You heal by learning that struggle isn't evidence of inadequacy, it's the mechanism of growth. That needing help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That your value was never actually about being different, it was always about being yourself. And maybe most importantly, you heal by grieving. By acknowledging what that label cost you. By feeling the loneliness of the separated child, the pressure of the performing child, the fear of the child who learned that love was conditional on continued exceptionalism. Because until you grieve what was lost, you can't fully inhabit what remains, the person you are beneath all the achievement. The one who's curious not because it makes them special, but because the world is genuinely interesting. The one who connects not through intellectual performance, but through vulnerable presence. The one who's learning that being enough doesn't require being exceptional, it just requires being real. Here's what I want you to know. If you were labeled gifted as a child and you are struggling now, if you feel like an imposter, if you are paralyzed by perfectionism, if you are afraid of being ordinary, you are not broken. You are not squandering your potential. You are not a disappointment. You are a person who was given an impossible standard and a fragile identity, and you are doing your best to build a life that feels authentic despite that. The giftedness was never the gift. The gift is who you are becoming now, as you learn to untangle your worth from your performance. As you learn that you can be ordinary and extraordinary, struggling and thriving, uncertain and growing, all at once. The gift is discovering that you were always more than the label. That your value isn't something you achieve, it's something you are. That you don't have to be special to matter. You just have to be here. Present. Real. Human. And maybe that's the real mastery. Not being effortlessly exceptional, but being courageously, messily, beautifully yourself. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. And whole includes the parts that aren't gifted, the parts that struggle, the parts that need help. Those parts aren't flaws in your exceptionalism. They are the foundation of your humanity. And that's worth more than any label ever was.